part?
Just when the school started, it's probably all over the world. Okay, that's probably all over. At this time, my birthday is in the end of December. I wasn't even 12 years old when the Germans marched in and took over Poland, where I was born. I come from a religious family of 10. I have 6 brothers and 4 sisters. I was the 9th, the next to the youngest. And we were a religious family. We took part of all the holidays and the synagogue and everywhere. So we were not rich people, because to support 10 children is not the easiest thing. We lived in a neighborhood where not the rich people lived, but the medium. But when they walked in, and they said, threw out a lot of people from other sections and from their homes and put them together with the part of the streets. They took a few streets and made what they call a ghetto, an area where they grouped together all the Jewish people they could. And they were very good in this. They did it, and I don't know how they knew everybody who was Jewish had to move from their homes and move it in the area where I was when we were there. It wasn't a very good area in Poland, but they got grouped all the people together, and in 1940, they announced that the ghetto is going to be closed. They may build a fence around us and a little bridge that the German was standing there and looking down at the people in the ghetto. We had to be in the house, not out in the street by 8 o'clock. We had to wear Stars of David's made out of material, and we had to sew it on our clothes, one in the front and the other in the back, to be recognized as Jews. Not that it made any difference. If we had to be in the ghetto, we couldn't leave from the ghetto. We were locked in like in a prison, in a very guarded prison. And it was more than a prison, worse than a prison, because they put us on I don't know, very strict thing. And we had laws. We couldn't have any gun, that was forbidden, even sharp knives, no radio, no paper, no phone, no nothing, living like animals, just not knowing everything, not no school either. So they closed the ghetto, and in 1941, all of a sudden, big trucks and a lot of German with tanks started coming in the ghetto. And I asked my mother, what is happening here? She said she doesn't know, but we seem to be in some danger here. Well, I had an older sister also in the ghetto there, living separately because she was married. She had 2 very beautiful, lovely children. One little boy was 3, Ed was 5 years old, and the little girl was 3 years old. When they marched in with all the trucks and ammunition and so many soldiers, I ran to the window to look what's going on, and I asked my mother. She said, we don't know, just go away from the window. But, well, they made on the market there an announcement that all the people which have children under the age of 12 and older people should come out. Also the sick people be carried out. They don't want anybody left in their apartments, because if they found anybody hiding there, they would shoot the whole family on the spot. So everybody was afraid, and from what we know, we heard afterwards, that my sister had to come out with the 2 children, and people were coming out with infants even, and sick people, and they said, and I was running to the window to see what's happening. That's all because I heard cries and shots, and cries, and my mother kept pushing me away from the window. She said, you are 14 years old now. It's not you, so get away from the window. And I think because we were very low diet, it wasn't a diet, it was starvation diet. And by the end, this took a whole day. And finally, they left, and from what we heard afterward, we asked our neighbor, because the mothers who had to give up their children, what happened here? And she told us about my sister, what happened to her. They grabbed the 2 kids from her, and they threw her on the truck. Those were windowless trucks, no windows in them or whatever. From what we heard afterwards, they were gas pallets in those trucks. I really can't talk about it. I couldn't talk about it for many years. And now, the last few years, I started talking about it because it helps me so much to talk about it. In these terrible times, the only light in our lives are those 2 kids. And she told us, the neighbor, that they grabbed those 2 kids, and my sister ran after them and called them murderers, because they shot her on the spot and threw her on the truck with the kids. And this is what happened at that time. That was the worst time, the worst day in the ghetto at that time for me. Well, this went out, we won, and they announced right away, we want now the people who are strong and at the age that they can work, we make it a working camp. Everybody has to work who is left here. From the age 12 up, they have to work. They all be assigned a job. And so they did. I was assigned to one of the worst jobs because I was young, 14 years, at 1942. And so I was assigned to a job to pull straws from big bales. In the summer it wasn't so bad. We pulled the straws, put it in a basket with a hanging of ours, and when the basket was full, we walked in and braided those straws. the longer the straws were, they were easier to break. But in the winter, it was terrible. We had to stand there and pull the straw from the beds. They were covered with snow and ice. My gloves that I had from before, they were torn in shreds already. So I had to pull the straw, the frozen straw, with my bare hands and plait them, and these plaited straws went into another department, and they were sewn into overboots for the German soldiers who stood on watch. Well, this went on for a bit. My father was getting very sick. One day, I couldn't sleep from the hunger. I was so hungry, and I couldn't sleep. And I must have fallen asleep when it was daylight already. And when I woke up, I saw it was kind of late, and I ran to work very fast. And the woman who was in charge, she told me, "You are not getting, because the only ration we got was at work. Who worked was eating whatever they gave us. They gave us a slice of bread and a soup. And this, we had to work during the day for 9 hours, like this, on this food. But she told me, you can't get anything, you go back home because you are late, so you don't get the ration." Well, I ran home, and there was only my father lying. He was very sick, and he was dying from starvation, I saw. So I thought to myself, when I walked to work, I saw people laying on the street, dead ones, hungered ones. And I said to myself, I can't take this anymore. That's the time I gave up. And I thought to myself, I better go up to that German guy. If you will shoot me, that will be a fast death. It's not gonna be slow from starvation. So I looked like a German woman. I had light blonde hair, blue eyes, and I thought to myself, well, maybe I'll tell him that I am a Volksdeutsche. Volksdeutsche means a German woman who was born in Poland. One spoke Polish well and spoke of German because the parents were German. I had a girlfriend like this. One of my girlfriends, when I came to her house, I had to speak to her parents in German. And we took a little German in school too. So I spoke German, but with an accent, with a Polish accent. So I walked straight up to so I tore off my yellow scarf and I put on my winter coat and the back also I tore off the scarf and I braided my blonde hair into braids. And I walked up to her, and right away he said, "Halt," when he saw me. And I raised my hand, and I said in German, "I am a Volksdeutsche. I got lost here." And he told me to come closer. He wanted to take a good look at me. And he looked and he said, "How in the hell did you get here on this side?" And he named the Jews such a bad name, the verfluchte Juden, those dirty, terrible Jews. How did you get on this side? So I told him I had a friend here and I saw the truck with food going in there. She knew that I know the truck already, and I jumped at it. The truck was covered with plastic. And when I found myself where I am, and I got scared, and I came here, I wanted to go. And he pointed the gun at me, and then he held it right to me. And he said, "Are you telling me the truth?" I said, "Yes," and I started shaking and crying. And he said, well. I said, "Please, I'm crying because my mother, she will really beat me up for it that I came on the other side." And he gave me a good whack in my back with his gun, with his rifle. And he said, "Oh, go over." Well, I went on the other side, and I saw life was going on the other side, like before the war. Everybody with kids, the papers, the radios, everything in a normal way. And I thought to myself, I was so hungry. So I knew where the bakery was because I was living there, not far from that place. So I went to the bakery and I brought, first of all, 2 rolls for myself. And I bought a big bread for my father, I figured, and I bring it to him, maybe he'll get well. And I waited till it got dark. And then I thought to myself, where would I get through it? How would I possibly go home there? Because I didn't know where to go there on the other side, where the people were free. And I thought, who was going to take me in? Nobody, probably. I don't know anybody who would take me in. So, near the fence, back and forth, I noticed a little, in one place, a little loose grass there. It was quite a bit of loose grass. And I felt, well, this must be the place when I can maybe back myself out and get through. When it got dark, I just walked back and forth and waited till nobody was around. And I started digging. Sure enough, underneath that grass, there was a hole there. I dug myself out a little more, first myself, and I felt the end of the fence scratching on my back and scratching very much through the coat. But I was pulling and pushing into the bread I left because with my bread would be too much. And by the time I was on the other side, I pulled the bread through. It was in the bag. And finally I got myself through to the other side. And I ran past home. I had to run so the lights from the bridge went around so it wouldn't hit me where I was. So they wouldn't see the guy who stood there on the bridge, the German guy, who let me in. So I ran, so finally I came at the house, my parents were sitting and they were in a shock. And then when they saw me all dirty and muddy, and they grabbed me and I grabbed my father and I said, "Here is the bread, eat as much as you can, but get well." This was my big in the ghetto. I kept working on that skimpy food what they gave us. And one day I passed out there from hunger. My girlfriend next to me who was just dragged me home. Luckily my sister, one of my sisters, was very good in sewing, and she was sewing for the hospital, the nurses and the doctors' uniforms. And she was going there measuring their sizes and sewing for them. So she was at that time home. And she dragged me to the hospital. She said, please take my sister in because she's dying. So please take her in, take her away. Well, they finally took me in and gave me a bed. And so that was covered inside with water. My lungs were covered with water. I couldn't breathe. So they put big injections to pull out the water from me. After a week or so, I was getting better. And so I had to. I was getting better, and in the meantime, they were sending out people, like if you're familiar with Schindler's List. Ours was a little town, like, of the ghetto. Every week, the Germans ordered, we need so many Jews to be sent out to different camps. And while I was in the hospital getting well and getting a lot more food than I did in the ghetto, so I could get back to almost what I looked like in a normal time before. Then while this was happening, my brothers were sent out to different concentration camps. And I didn't know what was going on. And all of a sudden, one of the nurses came running to my sister to tell her, please take your little sister out from here because they're going to liquidate the ghetto. And everybody, even Rumkowski, who was on the head of the whole ghetto, he goes with the whole hospital of children, the grown-ups and the sick people. They sending them out, they're liquidating the ghetto. So my sister came running, she took me out from there. I was looking already well, I was looking good, and I was back to myself like a regular person. And and there was nobody in the house left but my sister who was sewing the uniform. So I said, where is Mother and Hannah and everybody? She said they were all sent out. And only last week, she said, the last ones was my sister, who is now alive in Israel, and my mother's son. They were sent to Auschwitz. So I was home just a few days, and sure enough, we were sent to the train to be put on the trains that you use for transporting cows, animals. So they threw us in like animals you throw in, one next to the other, and we were going to Auschwitz. We came there to Auschwitz, we had to get off the train, and all the assessment were standing there with dogs, and so nobody could run away. And they started right away to assaulting us. Like the older people who were might be 50 or in the late 40s, they're going to the left. Other people who looked very well, they were going to the right. And so they formed this. Later we found out those people to the left were going to the gas chambers, like my mother. And the people to the right, they thought they might get some work out of them, so they put them to the right. I was one of them with my sister put to the right. But in Auschwitz, I spent 10 gruesome days. When I came into Auschwitz, the smell was so terrible. And there was the small cottage gymnast was going night and day, and never. And I thought, my God, is this hell? Because if this is hell, so I have been there. So, and one day in Auschwitz, a woman came running to us and said, I think your sister is here in my block where I am in the other building. So I said, well, then we can exchange, because we had no names, no numbers, just we had to be this and this amount. As long as it was this amount, we were counted, standing for hours, waiting till the German comes and counted us. So we had to be the amount. And my sister came running one day, and the other one left. So she was crying and crying. So I asked her, Hannah, why are you crying? You're with us now, there were 3 of us. She said, well, that's all that's left, I think. So she said, well, and she told us what happened, that when she came with mother a week before us, they separated my mother, of course, they put her into the raft. And she went near the fence looking for her. And she said she saw a guy standing across from the fence on the other side. And he asked her to the fence, why are you crying? What are you looking for? She said, I'm looking for my mother. They took her away. I'm looking where she is. He told her, you see the chimneys and the smoke there? That's where your mother went. So that's why she came running to me, and crying. I went through selections. They were picking people who looked good, young people, good-looking people. And every time he came, like Dr. Mengele, he made different trial operations and different things. And beside this, he picked also people who looked good, women. We were all women, there were no men among us, just the women, to take out as playmate for the soldiers. Every time he came, we heard that he's gonna come. My 2 sisters put me behind them. I said, why do you put me behind him? I look good. He said, no, not gonna send me away. She said, that's the problem, you look too good. So that's why they were afraid that they would take me out for the soldiers to be a playmate for them. So we went through the 10 days in Auschwitz. We had no underwear. We only had a coat, very light, and the stripes, as you say. Maybe in the pictures you'll see. And on the feet, we had no our shoes, because when we came to Auschwitz, we had to remove our old clothing and go to a shower. Well, we went to a shower, thank God it was a shower. But before I went in the shower, they cut off my hair, they shaved it. I was without hair. But this wasn't the worst. As far I came out of the shower and said, well, as long I'm alive. So we were in the barracks. And after 10 days, they put us on the trains and they sent us. We didn't know where we were going. Well, we were going deep into Germany to another camp in Germany. That was called Bergen-Belsen. It also was a death camp. There were 2 kinds of camps, working camps and death camps. This was one of the second one. at the Auschwitz death camp. And they didn't have room even for us because they were building some more of the housing to bring more people there. And there was typhus going around from the dirt and hunger. And we had to sleep in tents, just sleep on some straw. Rats were running about us all night long, looking for food. And we had to be like this for after 3 months of this kind of living with very few rations. We were told one day we are getting a dress and some shoes finally and being sent someplace else to be working. Well, they sent us to be working. It was a small town and we had to work in an ammunition factory that was making bullets for the Germans and the French. So I was assigned, there were day shifts and night shifts. The factories were working day and night because it was already 1944. It was already closer and they were starting to lose the war. So the factories were working hours and days. I was assigned at that time to a machine that was pushing in a bullet has in the back, a little stainless steel round thing that lights up the bullet. So this machine I was working on, so the mechanic, who was French, also a slave worker. When the bullet got stuck, he showed me there was a little stick there. You give it a little push, and so the bullet will go to get through. But I was at that time on the night shift, and I was tired and hungry, and the bullet didn't go through, and I kept pushing it a little too hard, probably, and it exploded. I saw the fire, so I threw myself fast to the floor, and the bullet went right past me. And the French mechanic saw that. He came running from behind me, and he said, first go to the other machine, then you're working, while I fix this. Because if the bullet didn't kill you, you'll see that SS guy right in front from far away. And if he heard this, that was a big noise that the machines made. If he heard it and saw the fire coming, he would have killed you. He would think that you did it on purpose. You said, now just wait and I'll fix the machine and you'll go back to the machine. Since then, he became my friend. From time to time, he brought me a sandwich, which I shared with my sister. They worked in a different department. So we worked there for about 9 months, and then the guy, the mechanic, told me in secret that the war is almost over, that this factory is going to be bombed. And we got, sure enough, the factory was getting bombed, and we were ordered to stay for a few days in the camp. So while we were staying there, we noticed that the German was watching us. He wasn't there anymore. He started. Well, and then we saw the other Germans who were there in the camp. The soldiers were running away. And we thought, oh, that must be true, what the mechanic told me, that the war is over. And not long afterward, we heard the Americans coming. They came and liberated us. On this day, the 14th, it so happened, I don't know how, But I tried to come here before that were the new glory, tried to get together as people, and somehow I wound up that day in the hospital. And maybe it was meant to be on this day here when I was liberated. So I can tell you that it's probably under our control and strength. So I'm here to tell you I'm alive. I came out of this alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much. I welcome questions, but I'm hard of hearing, so somebody will have to explain what the questions are, and I'd be glad to answer. We must have some questions.
Raise your hand if you have a question, I'll just call on you. Talk loud. Raise your hand if you have a question, I'll call on you. She loves questions. Okay, question.
What did you do after you were liberated?
What did you do after you were liberated?
After I was liberated, we had nowhere to go. Nowhere. We were like, where do we go? I have my two sisters, where do we go? Where they had places that they kept us. It was called the DP camps. Those were DP means displaced people. People who were displaced. They were thrown out of their homes. They were going through hell. There were a small leftover thing from the millions that were killed. Children, no children. You hardly saw a child be liberated. The Germans didn't need children. They needed people to work for them, the few people. They didn't need older people, they didn't need children, they didn't need anybody who was not normal as a group. For those people, they were fixed to go to be here.
I know that this is a horrific experience to tell about. How did it take some time before you were able to start talking about this after it happened? And how do you do it? Are you reliving the experience each time you tell it?
Believe me, it takes a lot out of me, because when I come home, my day is done. No matter if I talk in the morning in schools, or I come in the afternoon here, or any place, just talking about it makes me very sick and hurt. Because I happen to remember things. But at this age, I do. There was no answer why. Because we were Jewish. Because I happened to be born into a Jewish family as the ninth child. Yeah.
Do you still believe in God?
What?
Do you still believe in God?
I have to still believe in God. When I came out of this cell alive, when so many million got killed, innocent people, children, and everything. And I got through, even through the German, that I was ready to be shot. That must have been a meaning to me to be alive. And that's why I go to schools and everywhere they ask me to talk about it. Because maybe I was left alive for a reason.
Question?
Thank you for coming. Have you ever been back to Poland?
Have you been to Poland?
Yeah, I've been to Poland on the March of the Living, and I've been to Poland with It's just to see how it looks in the normal time after the war. So we were a group of people, our friends together with the families and so. But with the March of the Living, we were there with Julius and with another people. I would go again, but because they are short of Holocaust survivors who can go, it's a hard trip, but it's wonderful for youngsters. I know of the youngsters who've been there and went, and their lives changed completely. This is a big thing. So if you reach 16, to be 16, this is some experience, believe me.
Do you see similarities in the politics today in Poland from the 30s?
Do you see similarities in the politicians?
The politics of Poland.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends, but most of them who are gone already died. And after all, those people were more prone to die from what they went through. I had people who died at 60 already, Holocaust survivors. And who died younger, one of my friends who was with me in the camp and did it in the factory also. She died, she wasn't even 50 yet.
That's
Yeah.
And
But
can you say that again?
some of us are.
aspect.
What he asks is, do you see similarities in politics from now and forward?
No, not even the slightest. This is like America. When I came to America, I couldn't believe the difference. It's like going from hell to heaven.
Anyone else?
There is no difference, because here there are all nationalities together. It doesn't matter where you come from. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about race, color, everything. In Poland, I just saw just white people, just Catholics and Jews, white. The first black person I've seen was of the soldiers who liberated us.
Any questions for Julius or Sally?
Are you together? Are you married? Or are you friends?
When we got liberated, we all tried to get back to a normal life. So we met different, because when we were in concentration camp, we were just women, no men. Men were completely separate. When after the liberation, we got to know a lot of men from this town, that town around it. And so we made friendship, people formed, were getting married, they formed families, they wanted to get back to a normal life. So I met my husband there when I was 17 years old. I wasn't even 18 yet when we got married. So he was from a small family. He only had a younger brother, 11 years younger, which we went to Treblinka with his parents. And he was left alone, completely alone. That's why he only had some family in the United States. He had a cousin and an aunt. And when all my family, from the 12 people with my parents, we were left 6 of us, half of us. So I was left with 3 brothers and 3 sisters. And my husband didn't have anybody. So he told me, they were all, most of them except my brother, one brother, who said he wants to go to America. And of course, my husband said, where do you want to go, to Israel or to America? I said, Sam, most of my family, my sisters, go to Israel and two of my brothers. So of course I would want to go. But being you don't have anybody in Israel or only in America somebody, so it's just fair that I go with you to America. So that's how we divided ourselves. Now I only have one older sister, Hannah, who came running to us in Auschwitz. She is alive in Israel and she lives there. And I am in touch with her. So the two sisters are left.
Thank you.
Well, Sally, Julius, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming today and sharing your story, which is obviously so painful and difficult for you to tell. It's difficult for us to hear, but can you imagine living that at 12 years old? So, thank you so much for sharing your story. You wanted
I'm
to
so sorry I couldn't make it the first time. Maybe it was meant to be at the time of my liberation, or to be
and that's an incredible anniversary.
Since a lot of the people, Sally, a lot of the people are about 12 in this room, the kids, what would you like to share with them as they go into their lives? A lesson, if there is any. Maybe.
So since a lot of the kids here are 12, what would you want to share with them?
As a lesson for the future.
Kids, yeah, in schools.
The kids here.
Both these kids right here
Yeah.
are all about 12 and 13 years old. So Larry was saying, was asking, is there any lessons or anything
And you too, Julius.
special
Yeah.
that either of you?
Let's say that it's some change now. We didn't have before a country. It's the first was, where should we go? If we had Israel at that time, we would all go, of course, to Israel. If we had Israel if we had Israel at the time, our own country, when the war happened, when this happened, the extermination of Jews, maybe this wouldn't have happened to that point. So now, you guys, you have a country. We have our own country. That was makes a hell of a difference. But do the best just to believe and pray for peace. Just peace. At any cost, peace. No anymore.
Josh, see if Julius wants
If
to
you
say.
can avoid it, do anything to avoid it. I am not into politics, but I'm not going to tell you.
Julius, do you have anything to say to us for your
For the children.
Well, to you children, especially. I cannot tell you my story because it's going to take too much time, so we're going to leave this out. But I want you to understand, kids, you don't know how good you have it. You should appreciate every minute that you're an American, that you go to school, you can become whatever you want. We didn't have that. In Poland, where I come from, if you didn't have money and you finished 7 years of public school, you were out. You could not go to a college because you didn't have the money. So you don't know how lucky
And
you
we're
are.
going to work you.
Well, on top of it. But please, please, remember that you live in a country that you can speak up. You don't understand. You can't even comprehend what it means that you cannot say whatever you want to say. Here you can say it, and you are not afraid of anybody. I love America, and I hope you too.